All right, so this week we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff. Yeah, we're tackling the philosophies of Osho.
OSHO. He's definitely a controversial figure, no doubt about it, but his ideas on organized religion and like how we search for truth, it's going to really make you think, maybe see things a little differently.
You know, the thing about Osho that's so interesting, it's not that he was against spirituality itself.
Right.
It's more that he felt like organized religion kind of missed the point.
Interesting. So not ditching spirituality altogether, but sort of like a hard reset on how we approach it.
Yeah, exactly. He saw it as like straying from the true essence of connecting with something bigger than ourselves, you know?
Okay, I see. So like, did he ever talk about how that disconnect happened in the first place?
Well, Osho actually argued that those really pure original messages of figures like, Jesus, Buddha, they had gotten distorted.
Distorted how?
He felt like institutions over time, with their desire for, I don't know, power, control, all that.
Right. They kind of clouded the original intent,
Yeah.
Shifted the focus away from just this pure, genuine spiritual exploration.
So he's saying that these massive influential religions, they've strayed that far from their roots. Like, what evidence did he have for that? What were the red flags he was seeing?
Well, he'd point to the way organized religion uses things, fear, guilt, even repression, to keep people in line.
Wow.
Instead of like fostering a genuine connection with something divine, it becomes about control and obedience.
Okay, so this whole fear and control thing, got any like real world examples of that? How'd he see that playing out?
One of the biggest things he was critical of was how religions approach sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
He argued that so much of the messaging around that wasn't really about spiritual guidance at all.
Right.
It was about suppressing natural desires,
Mm-hmm.
controlling how people behave, rather than a healthy understanding of, this really fundamental part of being human.
No, that's definitely a point where a lot of traditional religions, they struggle, to say the least.
Yeah, and, that ties into a much bigger problem Osho had with organized religion. Dogma.
Dogma.
Yeah, like blind faith in scriptures, those kinds of teachings with zero room for questioning, personal interpretation. That really bothered him.
So it's not just what the scriptures say, it's how they're used. Like they can be a way to limit how much people are allowed to explore their own spirituality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He saw scriptures as like potentially valuable, historically, spiritually,
Yeah.
but ultimately,
Limited how?
well, he'd point out that they were written in such specific historical contexts,
Right.
reflecting, the understanding and challenges of that time.
Yeah.
So to just rigidly apply those interpretations to our lives now,
Yeah.
without thinking about how much the world has changed, how much our understanding has evolved, that would be, I don't know, almost doing ourselves a disservice.
I get that, trying to make sense of some of those ancient texts through a modern lens.
Yeah.
It's like using a map from the 1700s to navigate a city today.
Okay, yeah.
Like you might get the basic layout, but good luck finding your way around all the skyscrapers.
That's a great analogy, and it really highlights those limitations of just relying on dogma. So naturally, it makes you wonder.
If organized religion, blind faith, that's not the answer,
Right.
then what is? What was Osho's alternative for actual spiritual growth?
Well, Osho was a huge, huge proponent of personal experience, especially through meditation.
So instead of all those rituals, the dogma, he thought true spiritual understanding that came from within, from cultivating that inner connection.
Exactly.
Hmm.
He used to say, you can't learn to ride a bike just by reading about it in the book, right? You have to actually get on the bike and experience it, the falls, the triumphs, all of it.
Makes sense.
He saw spiritual understanding the same way it's about that direct experience, not just blind acceptance.
Okay, so it's about forging your own path, finding your own truth, not just following someone else's blindly. That's a pretty individualistic approach to spirituality. But, I mean, if there's no structure, no set of beliefs to share, how do we make sense of any of it? How can there even be a sense of unity, shared understanding in that kind of environment?
That's a really common question. And Osho actually had this really vivid analogy to address it.
Oh.
Imagine like all these different rivers, each one winding its own unique path, but they all eventually flow into the same vast ocean.
Right.
Right.
So even though we might all take different paths, different practices, maybe even have different beliefs, there's a shared destination, a kind of unity in all that diversity of experience.
You got it.
Hey.
He truly believed that the essence of spirituality, that connection to something bigger, goes beyond the rituals and dogmas of any one religion.
Right.
It's about tapping into that universal energy, the things we all experience as humans.
Okay.
But he also felt like the moment those paths become rigid, more about the rules than the journey itself.
Yeah.
That's when they stop being pathways to connection and become obstacles instead.
So it's less about following and more about feeling, discovering, connecting in a very personal way. But even with the shared destination, isn't it still a pretty radical step to ditch the whole structure of organized religion entirely?
Well, Osho went even further than that.
Oh,
He actually envisioned a world with what he called a new religiousness.
a new religiousness. Okay, now I have to hear more about this. That's definitely an intriguing phrase. All right, so what did he have in mind? How would this new religiousness actually work in the real world?
Well, Osho's new religiousness wouldn't actually be religious in the traditional sense, really, at all.
Okay.
He was imagining a world where, like, spirituality, it's completely free from institutions.
Wow.
Dogmas, rituals, all that stuff, the things he saw as baggage, weighing down true spiritual seeking,
No more churches, temples, mosques, like not even groups meditating together. That's wild. It's like almost rejecting the idea of religion completely.
It might sound radical, but think about it this way. What if, instead of relying on those external structures, predefined paths, what if we went into spirituality with that same openness, that same curiosity we have when we're exploring a new city?
Okay.
No tour guide, no set itinerary, just that sense of adventure.
I like that.
Just being willing to see what unfolds organically.
So instead of a rigid itinerary, it's more like we're wandering, exploring different streets, stumbling on some hidden cafe.
Exact.
Each experience, it adds to our understanding of the city, even if it wasn't part of some official tour, right? We
Right.
create our own personal journey.
Exactly. And just like those individual experiences end up shaping how you see the city, Osho believed that personal exploration through meditation, introspection, connecting with nature, whatever really speaks to you,
Yeah.
that would be the foundation of this new religiousness.
It's a cool concept, this whole like self-directed spirituality. It's like a choose your own adventure to connect with something bigger than ourselves. But wouldn't that make it almost impossible to, I don't know, connect with other people on a spiritual level? I mean, people are social creatures, right? Like, do we just lose that sense of community in Osho's vision?
That's a good question. And to be fair to Osho, he wasn't saying people should be totally isolated or anything.
Okay.
He thought that by connecting more deeply with ourselves first, with our own inner truth,
Yeah.
we'd actually be more ready to connect with other people in a real, authentic, meaningful way.
Because we're coming from a more genuine place.
Yeah. And without the constraints of dogma, preconceived notions, all that.
So less about everyone believing the same things and more about finding common ground in the shared experience of searching, of growing, of connecting with something bigger than all of us.
Right. Osho used to say, the only true religion is love. Yeah. And not just romantic love, but a
Yeah.
really deep, compassionate understanding and acceptance of ourselves
Yeah.
and everyone around us.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that was the real path to spiritual enlightenment,
Interesting.
and that it could exist outside of any organized religion.
Love as a path to enlightenment. That's actually a really beautiful thought. I
Yeah.
think that could resonate with a lot of people, even people who don't consider themselves to be religious.
Right.
But it also makes you wonder if this new religiousness, if it's so individual, so free from dogma, structure, all that, I mean, can we even call it a religion at all? Or is it something totally different? Is there a risk it becomes so individualized that it loses all meaning?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Right. And it might be something we each have to answer for ourselves.
Yeah.
Osho seemed to think the label didn't really matter.
Okay.
What was important was the experience itself, that personal journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
and connection to something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
He thought this new type of spirituality could actually bridge some divines, unite people from all over in a shared experience of awe, wonder, love,
Yeah.
all without the restrictions
Uh-huh.
of those more traditional religious structures.
It's a bold vision, that's for sure. Whether or not you buy into all of Osho's critiques of organized religion, you can't deny that he's raising some really thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what if we stripped away all the rituals, the dogma, the institutions, all of it? What would be left at the core of our spiritual beliefs? Like, what really matters? Is it the structure that holds it all together, or is there something more fundamental going on?
That's the heart of it, right?
Yeah.
Osho's challenging us to look past the surface level, question our assumptions,
Yeah.
and approach spirituality not as this set of rules to follow,
Right.
but as a journey of personal exploration.
Yeah.
And that journey, he believed, it was ultimately one of love, compassion, and acceptance.
So where does that leave us? Like, how do we even begin to make sense of these ideas, especially if we were raised with a certain set of beliefs about religion and spirituality? How do we bridge that gap between what's familiar and this new, totally uncharted territory?
Well, I think the first step is just acknowledging that for a lot of us, hitting the reset button on, our whole belief system,
Yeah.
it can feel kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not about just throwing away everything we were taught,
Right.
but more like looking at those beliefs with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
with a little curiosity, maybe a critical eye even.
Yeah.
Asking ourselves, like, why do I believe this? Where did this come from? Does it still feel true based on what I'm experiencing now, how I understand the world today?
It's like taking inventory.
That's
Instead of just inheriting our spirituality, we're taking ownership of it.
100%.
So it's like finally unpacking those boxes in the attic of our minds, right? Deciding what to keep, what we might want to, regift, and what hidden treasures we might find in there.
I love that.
But even if we're ready to question things, where do we even start? Religion, spirituality, it's huge.
Well, that's actually what makes Osho's philosophy so relevant, even now. He wasn't saying we should just, reject all religious traditions outright.
Right.
He really wanted people to look deeper, past all that, to that core of love, compassion, connection.
Yeah.
The stuff that goes beyond any one dogma, any one set of beliefs.
Okay, so instead of getting stuck on which rituals are right, which scriptures hold the truth, whatever that even means,
Yeah.
we should be looking for that underlying message, that human experience at the heart of it all, like finding the threads that connect us across cultures, across history.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that shared human desire, that need for meaning, for connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what form it takes.
What's that universal yearning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Osho really believed that focusing on these core principles, that's how we start to bridge some of those divides, how we cultivate a more universal spirituality,
Yeah.
And one of the big tools he always recommended, meditation.
It's interesting you mentioned meditation because it used to be seen as this separate thing,
Right.
only for yogis or, super spiritual people.
Right.
But these days, it's everywhere.
It is.
Stress reduction, focus, emotional well-being. I mean, they're even using it in corporate offices now.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows how universal it really is,
Right.
You don't have to be religious to benefit from quieting your mind, connecting with yourself on a deeper level.
It's a tool anyone can use.
Absolutely, regardless of your background, your beliefs, any of that.
So to wrap this up, it's not about finding a new religion. It's about going on that personal journey
Yes.
of self-discovery, asking questions, challenging those assumptions.
Right.
And then ultimately, we each get to decide what spirituality means for us, right?
That's the beauty of Osho's message.
Mm.
It's about peeling back those layers,
Yeah.
questioning the structures that we take for granted,
Yeah.
and finding that deeper connection, something more meaningful. And who knows, you might just find that those connections, those shared experiences of wonder and awe,
Yeah.
they're more powerful than any dogma or doctrine could ever be.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Osho's take on religion. It's definitely provocative, makes you think, maybe even a little uncomfortable, right?
A little bit.
But you can't deny that he makes you question things, reevaluate, maybe even redefine how you think about spirituality,
Definitely.
And I think that's what's so powerful about engaging with perspectives like Osho's.
Right.
They push us out of our comfort zones. They make us think critically. And hey, maybe they even inspire us to start our own unique journeys of self-discovery.
That's what it's all about.
So on that note, here's a final thought for you to sit with. If you could strip away all the rules, all those expectations, all the preconceived notions, what would your spirituality look like? What truly resonates with you at your core? It's something to think about as we navigate this, wild, wonderful journey we call life. Until next time, keep diving deep.